Going into meditation and coming out is especially important. You do not want to be jolting yourself out of meditation, shaking yourself out of meditation. Because you've spent some valuable time cultivating, developing the mind during that time. And that's another name for bhavana. Bhavana is a Pali word that the English equivalent to that is cultivation. What did you cultivate? Well, you prepared the mind. You spent an extra bit of attention. You gave that attention to the mind. The most valuable asset we have. So we must be extra protective of the mind. More than we do to our closest, most valuable, most cherished individual in our lives. I was saying that last week to a mother who loves her daughter very much, her only daughter, and she's a single mom. And I said, here's a shocker for you. Taking care of the mind is actually more valuable, if you can imagine, more precious than your own little, lovely daughter. She was like, yeah. Because if you lose your mind, if you lose the tranquility of the mind, you lose everything, including your daughter. You will not be able to identify. No way. That's why we must take good care of the mind, very good care, cherish it, protect it at all costs. That's why we have sila. Sila is our protection, our discipline, our moral discipline. Not to kill or harm anyone on purpose, with intention, knowingly. Doing our best not to do that. 2, not to take what is not freely given to us. 3, not to engage in any kind of sexual activity whereby somebody could get hurt, including ourselves, our own bodies, somebody's partner, someone who's too young, someone who's under the protection of someone else, against their will. 4, not to engage in any kind of chatter, conversation, where somebody's going to get hurt because of our speech. Hence, the speech has to be truthful, but with compassion. You could say something that's very truthful, but it could be mean. That, it might be true. So the truth is not necessarily number one here. You have to have the compassion and understanding and care, tenderness, responsibility to consider. Another one is slandering. Not to slander, not to gossip, not to backbite, not to stab people in the back with your words. Taking ownership of your words. My mother used to say, the tongue does not have any bones in it. What that means is, once you start wagging it left and right, it's basically, you can destroy lives. Because once it's loose, you unleash it into the world. There's no way of getting it back. Sorry, it's out. So we have to really restrain ourselves prior to letting it go, letting it loose out of your lips. Another one is using harsh words, cursing and cussing and things like that. Would you like that to be spoken to you? And then there's also the idle chatter, useless chatter, ones that you hear in radio talk shows and, commentators, sports announcements, people who just news anchors and people who just most of the day. Sometimes you don't even have anything to say. You pick up the phone and you call your friend. To do what? Waste time. idle chatter. As you do so, sooner or later you're going to break some precepts, by the way. You're going to say something that you will regret. You're going to say something about someone else that might be hurtful. And then there's the fifth precept, and that is when we ruin the work that you just did. Meaning, imagine me taking this cup full of water and dumping it on my laptop. You go, don't do that. Why? Because it's electronics. You're going to ruin it. $2,000 gone. Okay, if you're that cautious about this inanimate object, why in the world are you okay with putting toxins into your brain? Yes, drugs. But that's not just all. Alcohol, yes. Any substance that deludes the mind, yes, but those are not it only. What do you expose your eyes to most of the day? The eyes are windows to the brain, to the mind. What do you expose yourself to? What kind of friends do you engage with, hang out with? What do you do? What kind of chatter goes on around you? What type of TV shows you watch? Maybe video games. Killing, this and that, and then we wonder, why is there violence in the world suddenly? It must be guns, right? No, it's the people who are using the guns. But even worse, the ideas and the exposure to influences. What kind of influences? Then you see the chain reaction. So taking ownership. That's why. That's sila. Sila is an ancient word that Lord Buddha used, which means also protection. Not just precepts, taking precepts. Yes, it's part of it, but when you're practicing these five, you're also protecting yourself and everyone around you. You become trustworthy. Your word matters. That's something that I'm discovering to be more and more rare every day, where people take responsibility for their words. There was a saying when I was growing up, a man is as good as their word, basically. A person is as good as their word. If your word means nothing, there goes your value as a human being. Nowadays, people don't even think about that. We become very mediocre, very superficial. And then we wonder, no, it's the world. The world is the wrong thing. No, it's us, the person. Because the moment you start practicing sila, suddenly you, on your part, you've actually changed the world. Because now with your eyes, you are seeing a world that is much better than the world that everyone else is seeing. And people wonder, why are you so cheerful? What are you doing? Nothing, I'm just protecting myself, taking responsibility, restraining myself from saying, doing, thinking things that are actually going to cause me pain. There you go. If something I'm thinking about is causing me pain, why in the world do I continue to ponder that, to think that? It's a no-brainer. It's so easy. Does this help me? Is this helping me now? Remember during the 10-day retreats I was saying? Ask yourself, in the middle and mid-sentence when you're having this major argument with yourself, is this helping me now? This thinking, this speech that I'm involved in, with this action that I'm doing, is this helping me now? Because immediately you will get a response. Immediate, and that's another qualifier of the Dhamma, for the Dhamma. In Pali it's sanditthiko, which means immediately effective, directly visible basically. Another one is akaliko, which is timeless. Doesn't have anything to do with time, time zones. Time's changing. No. It's immediate. So sila, samadhi is the training, is the mental training. And then these two working together bring about what? Panya, which is wisdom, discernment. You become wiser about your life, about your choices. Suddenly you're taking ownership of your life. You don't blame someone else for your suffering. You realize, okay, somebody caused me harm. Okay, they caused it to me once. They stepped on my toe or they stabbed me. Fine. What can I do about it now? They did it once. But I go ahead and stab myself again and again and again and again by replaying the tape in my head. And then 20, 30 years later, you still have a grudge against someone or some people. So you're stuck. You got chains behind you that are pulling you back. It's like you can't move forward. And then you're blaming again the world around you. So when a person comes to meditate, nobody comes with a clean slate, you know. And it's a very tough job for a teacher to, first of all, show the student the shackles and the chains, because everybody's going to deny it. They're going to, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. Where are you getting all this stuff from? I'm okay. I'm looking at you, and that's why I'm saying this. So finally, on a retreat, people start to see things. If they continue practicing at home, they can also start seeing this. Especially when you practice sila. Nobody enforces it upon you. It's not like commandments that you might have in other religions. You have to ask the teacher, the monk, to give it to you. 3 times you have to ask. You have to ask. I don't give it to you like, hey, come over here. I'm going to give you 5 precepts. No. You have to say, excuse me, can I please get the 5 precepts? Okay. And even when we take it, we're like, I undertake to keep the training rule, because it's training. You might falter sometimes. You might not be able to keep the precept. That's okay. Nothing's going to come falling from the sky over your head because you broke a precept. But the important thing is for you to stop, take note of it, and say, okay, I did that. If I have the opportunity again, would I do it again? And if the answer is absolutely not, I won't do it again. Okay, let go of it. Say, I'm sorry if it's involving someone else. And then immediately retake the precept. Done deal. Finished. Move on with your life. Don't drag something with you. Guilt, which is such a painful thing. Many people have carried that guilt, that remorse for years. And we wonder why our practice doesn't grow. Guilt is a terrible poison. So one of the first things I try to get people to think about is, please, retake the precept, drop it, move on, smile again. Nothing's going to happen. So if the person does these things and they practice, they go deep and deep and deeper. With the direction of a teacher, they can go so deep that they can go through the jhanas. The jhanas are higher states of mind, levels of deep understanding, and with consistent practice, they can open up new vistas of possibilities, where the mind suddenly drops into a state of calm that is unprecedented. And there's sometimes extreme joy. Unprecedented, never happened before. You don't think that that is possible for a human being to feel that much joy without a reason. Without a reason, being from outside. Somebody gave you this precious jewel, somebody gave you this precious gift, and all of a sudden, or you're marrying the person of your dreams suddenly. No, none of these things happen. Yet, because you're sitting in meditation, suddenly there's this incredible joy. Wow, and you walk and your body is vibrating. You didn't take any drugs, by the way. It's not chemical like that. And then as the person goes deeper and deeper, there's different levels of jhana. When I used to teach high school, I had some students come, and students that felt very comfortable with me. I used to teach biology, AP and also, general sciences. So the students would come, and I knew they were kind of on the wilder side, shall we say. So they would do, marijuana, this and that outside, and I could smell it off of them, so I would try to discourage them and this and that. But they knew that I meant the best for them. So once they graduated, they still kept in touch with me. So they would go to these parties, they would go to these different things, and they would tell me, "Oh, you're not going to believe this. We tried this drug." And I said, "Don't do that. I would give them the example of the keyboard, the laptop with the water and liquid. And they said, "No, but it's giving us so much happiness and so much joy." And I said, please come and meditate. I'll show you how to meditate. You're going to get so much joy that no drug under the face of the sun, the sky, could actually do anything even remotely close to that. They're like, no. They never tried. Sublime experiences, as far as you can experience with, with the body sensing these things. So we have 4 of these. They're called the Rupajanas. Rupa means form, dealing with the form, specifically dealing with the body. When we talk about the form, Rupa, which involve the 4 great elements, primaries: earth, heat, water, and air. These are descriptions. These are textures. They're not the actual earth. They're not the actual fire. Heat, for example. So there's a sutta which talks about the others, because there's 2 groups. One is Rupajanas and the other one is Arupajanas, formless. This is when the person has less and less contact with the body. Even if you touch their body, they won't feel it in some cases. But they won't feel the body unless someone touches it initially. So these are called Arupajanas. These are different levels of the mind expanding. And unprecedented again. It doesn't have the joy, the incredible, exhilarating joy that the person feels, like goose flesh, all goosebumps all over the body. Every single nook and cranny in the body feels like vibrating, and it's like goose flesh. It's not like that. And these go deeper. I'm giving you just one example. So the Arupajanas, as the practice goes deeper, they unfold into different layers. So we have the infinity of, or realm of infinity of space, consciousness, nothingness, and neither perception nor non-perception. Those are basically 5, 6, 7, and 8 jhanas. Now, I don't want it to feel like this is too much, this is, I wanted to give this, I had included this as one of the suttas out of a series because tonight is the last one. Initially, when I was setting up the schedule for these suttas, I was not planning on this being the last one. In fact, I was thinking of adding more suttas coming up, in September and on. But change of plans turned this to be the very last sutta of my stay here. But interestingly enough, this sutta is also something that a lot of people keep asking about in meditation or wonder about. They don't know much, they're curious about. And not enough information is out there for them because everybody's giving their own opinions about them. Some books are written, yes, but many of them come from the Visuddhimagga, which is a manual that has turned into like a Bible for meditators in Buddhist countries, unfortunately, because it's not based on a good foundation. Especially because the person who wrote it didn't experience any of it, any of these states. My thing is, if you're going to write on something, you might as well have actually experienced these things. It's like somebody who, doesn't know anything about chairs, building chairs, and he writes a book on chairs, or on computers, or golfing, or swimming. They don't know how to swim, be in the water for 10 seconds without drowning. They write a book on swimming. Well, that's what happened with Visuddhimagga, a book that has become a manual, unfortunately. So for me, for years, it's been a policy or a method to go back to the source, which are the Pali Suttas, the original teachings of Lord Buddha's. And that's what all of the suttas that I've been covering come from, where they come from. And so this sutta in particular, it's from the Anguttara Nikaya, which are the numerical discourses, and it's from the Book of the Threes, 116, so 3.116. It's the Anenja Sutta. It's a relatively unknown sutta, and if you notice, there's a pattern in the selection of suttas that I've been exposing you to, because not many people, I didn't know about this until this sutta, until I was translating it. I was like, oh, okay. So I had this translated in 2020. This is Book of the Three. Now I'm on Book 7. So there's 10,000 suttas in the Anguttara Nikaya. So I still have some way to go, because it's 11 books. So I'm on Book 7. So hopefully before I die, I'll finish it. So this sutta is on the formless arupa realms, or Rupajanas. Now, many people don't think about this or know about this, but at the time of Lord Buddha, there were other traditions, contemporaries of Lord Buddha, who were also practicing levels of technique or techniques, meditation techniques, that would also get them to these states. Okay? So he himself had done that before becoming a Buddha, let's not forget, as Siddhartha Gautama. But the way they were practicing is called one-pointed concentration. What that means is it becomes an absorption. Earlier I was saying if you touch the body in these states, you have to touch the body in order for the person to become cognizant of the body. However, in the way that he had been taught as Siddhartha Gautama, and to this day you might find people in India still practicing this, not just in India, of course. And you go and touch them, you can cut their leg with an axe, they can still not feel it. They won't feel it until they come out of it. So it cuts you and your awareness, your consciousness from the body. In such a state, it is impossible to have wisdom occurring. There's no sati, mindfulness. You're just lost in this very fine state of just like bliss. So Lord Buddha, before becoming the Buddha, he had tried this, and he had done this, and he pretty much accelerated his progress very quickly, and he got to these states, including all the way to the 8th jhana, 7 and 8. And after a while, he was like, okay, is this it? Because I still find in me anger. I still find in me craving, desire, wanting, ignorance. So if this is such a pure and blissful state, how come I still have these negative states? This must not be it then. Because they're saying, the teachers that he had, were telling him this is the best that there is. And they were right at the time. This is the supreme thing that was available. And he had it now. In fact, his teacher who taught him the technique, his father had taught him. His father had reached it, this teacher. He himself, the son of the teacher, Uddakarama had not reached it. But he taught the technique to Siddhartha. And Siddhartha, within a very short time, boom, he hit the 8th jhana. To the point where the teacher went, wow, come, you need to be the teacher here. Let's teach together, because he was the son, and let's teach together. And he's like, no, I'm not after becoming a teacher. Thank you very much. I'm after the bigger fish. I want to get rid of ignorance here. You don't understand. And if you're saying this is the best, best is not good enough for me. I have to go apparently and find out for myself. And that's what makes the Buddha the Buddha. It has to be an absolute, complete darkness as far as Nibbana is concerned. As far as the Eightfold Path, they should be completely wiped out. No record of it. No record of it. So that's why some people say, oh, the next Buddha is coming. No, he's not. Not anytime soon. We're talking about millions of years maybe. Who knows? Because first there needs to be absolute pitch darkness when it comes to wisdom. No paticca samuppada, no Four Noble Truths, no anicca dukkha anatta, no sila samadhi panya, no Eightfold Path, none of it. Not a hint, not an echo, not a trace of it. And then The bodhisattva in some realm has to have the necessary merits and the desire at that moment in time to say, I have to do the work. And in that darkness is one of the major criteria, one of the requirements rather. So without deviating so much, I wanted to give you a back story of how does this fit into the whole scheme of things. So Rupajanas. We look at the Rupajanas in the sense that not just the sublime state, because it's just a jhana, just a jhana. I had one teacher who used to say, the jhanas are like sleep, a nice, deep sleep. After you're exhausted, you get into that sleepy state and you just doze off and you get up and you're like, this was good. It's like that. And eventually what happens? It wears off. You have to continue on with your life. Ignorance is there saying, hello, did you miss me? Let's continue on. Welcome back. You remember this greed you have? I'm here. Craving is here. Hatred is here. Ignorance is here. So, the jhanas don't get rid of those things. Samatha, which is the calm meditation, which, whether you use metta bhavana, loving kindness, which I was guiding you through earlier, or anapana, or any of the other techniques, can get you. But you need to apply satipatthana, the mindfulness, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which is what also the Lord Buddha will teach. That's one of the requirements. That's the only way you can actually break free, and not through the jhana. That's the game changer, if you will. That was the thing which allowed Lord Buddha to penetrate through ignorance. He understood the 3 characteristics of existence. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. That's how. In other words, what we usually call vipassana, penetrative insight, to look through and see what's happening. All of a sudden you start seeing your involvement with life. You see how things are coming about. It's not like suffering fell off the sky into your lap all of a sudden. Hey, why me? It's not like that, never. There's a series of things that have been happening and you're part of it. And that's why ignorance is the cause of everything. Ignorance of what? 4 Noble Truths. Understanding, first of all, that I'm suffering. Appreciating that, yeah, this is suffering. Ooh, this is painful. So I have to be mindful of it. Most people, everyone actually suffers, but not everyone is aware of it. It takes a moment to understand, why? Why is this happening? And then the second noble truth is the answer to that. Why is this happening? It's because of craving. First, you have to acknowledge that there is the suffering. Second is the why as to the cause of this, origin of this. And then, the moment you realize, suddenly something happens. Poof, it drops. As in, oh, I'm involved in this. It's like you're carrying 1,000 pounds and all of a sudden you realize, okay, my arms are shaking like this, so if I let go, I'm going to have relief. Yeah, let go. Ooh, that relief. You didn't come into this world carrying that, You decided to carry it and maintain that hold. Guilt, anger. I am my anger. I want this. Well, the life is saying, no, you want it, but I'm not going to give it to you. What do? You start fighting. There's dukkha. But you're holding on, that's craving. Let go of the craving, there's nirodha, ending of suffering. And how do you do this? You need to have a step-by-step guide, to find out. That's the Eightfold Path. Simple. When people make the Dhamma so complicated, I feel pain in my heart. Because that's not what Lord Buddha taught. It has to be applicable in your career, in your life, in your level of understanding. It's the same thing. You don't need a PhD in the Dhamma, in Buddhism, at all. Just simple things. So even these jhanas, don't think, oh, this is too much, it's not for me, I'm not evolved yet. Oh, no, none of that nonsense. So I'm covering this because it's a wonderful way to understand this other aspect of the practice that many of you are curious about, especially some of you who did the 10-day retreat. Where does this lead me, Bhante? Read the Anenja Sutta and you'll find out. So again, it is the Anenja or immovable states. It's called immovable states. It's again from the Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses, 3.116. All right. Remember, the Dhamma is not about words or traditions. It is a practice. These should not be simply things that, yeah, it would be nice. Okay, next chapter, next thing. No. Why not sit and practice and taste these for yourself? Lord Buddha had a saying for that. Is that, ehipassiko, come and test it for yourself. Try it yourself. If you want to buy something, clothing, what do? You just go to the mall or you look at the window pane and just say, yes, I like that. Thank you. Size 16 or size 5, I don't know what it is. And you just take it and go? No, you go in and what? You try it. Right? Shoes. Yeah, I think I wear size 14. Okay, go ahead. I'll take that. No, you try it. You try it. Or your car, even bigger deal, right? More expensive. You don't just go and say, yeah, I'll take that car. You sit, you see if the seat fits you, the car, the drive, all these. We have these very logical, reasonable methods of testing and applying because we don't need to make our lives complicated. But when it comes to the Dhamma, we just don't care, don't take seriously. It's no different than your life. So practice. That's the test drive. That's the only way you know what Lord Buddha taught. Not through some books. You need to practice what it says in the books. Okay, let's begin. Bhikkhus, these three persons are known to exist in the world. What three? Here, bhikkhus, a certain person having overcome all perceptions and memories pertaining to matter and going beyond those thoughts and memories that incite anger, that bring about anger. Memories. Not attending to the diversity of memories and mental conjuring, and no longer being instigated through sensory involvement, experiences the boundlessness of space. So you're letting go of memories, because memories are going to come and try to shake you. That's the nature of the mind, because if you go deeper and deeper, the old tendencies of the mind will keep creeping in and creeping up. They're going to come and shake you. But when you're allowing yourself to be relaxed and smile and come back to your practice, always, 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 suddenly the mind fits. Like if you drop a coin on the top of the, just into the pool, full of water, and it drops from the surface and it goes like this, until it hits the bottom, finally, and then it doesn't move. That's why we call it these immovable states. But you need to give it that time. You need to allow it, not shake it up. So the memories will shake things up. So ignore the memories. I don't care how beautiful they are, how pretty. They are simply distractions. Another word for sanya is memory. Mental conjurings. You don't have to waste time with them. Just don't touch them. See them what they are, just ignore. It's like, yeah, I see you, I see you. My job is not to play with you. Go deeper, go deeper. He becomes attached to it, craving for it to last, as he strives after it while finding satisfaction in it, becoming infatuated with it and making much of it without falling away from it. After his death, he is reborn in the company of devas within the realm of boundless space. So if you are practicing this state of jhana, you're so attached. I've had students who come and say, Bhante, I don't want to lose this joy. I don't want to lose this metta. and I try to show them how to advance beyond that state, wherever they are, they come back to that state of joy. They want that joy. They want that exhilaration. They want the goose flesh. They want to feel that buzzing sensation. Yeah, but there's more. Why do you get stuck there? There's more. You're like, you're going into this huge gift store, the mall, let's say. Somebody's giving you the keys and says, take everything. And you stand, you're just walking in through the doorway and there's all these gifts and you're like, I want this, and that's it. Yeah, but there's a whole building of stuff you never even explored, waiting for you. So it's very, like, you can use that analogy. But if the person in this case is so attached to the boundlessness of space, then they keep only using that, that's where they're going to be stuck. That's where they're going to stay. And many people stay here. You see this in other cultures, in either, like in Sufism, for example, there's a lot of love. They talk about love, or hasad, they call it in Persian, in Farsi, which is like longing for God. So there's this love, and you have bhakti in Hinduism. They live there, they stay there, but that's a level of jhana which has more things, but they're stuck there, they don't go beyond. So, Lord Buddha is saying, if that person dies with that state, they will be reborn in that level of devas that are of that level of attainment. They live with that mindset, boundlessness of space. The devas living within the realm of boundless space have a lifespan of 20,000 world cycles or eons. Can you understand, wrap your mind around that? 20,000 world cycles. Let's start with one, not 20,000, just one. World cycle means an eon. Mahakalpa, that means a Big Bang, 4 times. Big Bang before it explodes, Big Bang when it's exploding, expanding, Big Bang when it reaches that moment of stillness at the very end. Same amount of time, by the way. And then the big crunch, whoop, which is the same amount of time. So those 4 stages make up one Mahakalpa. 20,000 of them. Can you imagine how long that is? I can't. It's pretty long. If you write the zeros and the numbers, it's going to be probably miles with size 12 font. Pretty long. But they're still stuck because it's a very nice state to be in, but there's no growth, no wisdom. And soon, this is the worst part, sooner or later, what's going to happen is they're going to come out of it because the credit is going to run out. Because there's this thing called impermanence. And because the person has not attained awakening, they will fall. And usually when they fall from these states, they really fall low, to lower realms, because they didn't practice. They were just enjoying it. It's like somebody who just splurges and wastes money that they've collected and saved. They've forgotten how to work. They've forgotten how to earn money. A very, very rich person who's never worked in his life suddenly is penniless. What does he end up? Homeless. That's what I mean by they're going to drop to a lower state, usually. An ordinary person having lived and completed that lifespan by using up the merits of his divine birth goes to hell. This is not from me, this is from Lord Buddha. Or to the animal realm. Or is reborn with the afflicted spirits or ghosts, petas. As for the disciples of the Blessed One, once having completed the lifespan in that divine realm, he attains final Nibbana within that same existence. Wait a minute. One person who attained that state and another person who attained that state, they're both reborn. One, when their credit runs out, as it were, they fall into the lower realms, but a student of Lord Buddha's stays there until they become an arhat. So somebody thinks, first reading this and say, Buddhists are writing and they're pushing for their own agenda type of a thing. No. Now we're going to explain as to why. In that same existence they will attain Nibbana. Bhikkhus, this is the difference and the distinction of the future rebirth destination between the instructed noble disciple and that of the ordinary person. A good example here would be the metta bhavana, the one that you did, or we do and have been doing here since I've come to this temple, to this center. Metta, which is loving kindness, which is what we did earlier, briefly. If it is missing certain elements, certain key ingredients, then it becomes like the jhana, the one-pointedness that I was talking about, because it gives you that nice feeling. But what I also teach you is the moment you have a hindrance in the mind, the moment you have a memory or some type of distraction, I always encourage you to recognize it, see what it is, and release the body, the tension in the body, and with introducing a wholesome state of mind in the form of a smile, you're relaxing, you return back to the object of meditation. What many people do with concentration, they see the distraction and they jump back into the meditation object. Boom, they skip a few steps. That does not teach you, that does not allow you to gain understanding, especially wisdom. Because you didn't do the satipatthanas. When you're doing those other steps that I talked about, you're doing kaya-anupassana, vedana-anupassana, chitta-anupassana, and dhamma-anupassana. All in those very few steps. Because you're checking the body, you're seeing that the face is not relaxed. There's kaya. You're also feeling vedana. I'm feeling angry, Bhante. Okay. Recognize it. Okay. See if is it good, painful, good, what? It's painful. Okay, recognize it. And then the moment you check into the brain and the body and you release it, suddenly the hold that the feeling had on you is gone. Is released. And if it's a feeling that is perpetuated because of a physical pain, you still understand that as well. And as you're returning back, you're checking the quality of the mind, which is chitta-anupassana. Okay, 3 out of 4 so far. And as you're returning back, you're understanding anicca. Why? Because you were in a blissful state. Now you're not, but now you're going back. Do you see what's happening? While you were in a painful feeling state, what was that? Dukkha. And am I involved in any of this? Am I doing any of these things? Am I making? No. So there's no substance to me? No substantial ego or self inside? Yeah, because I'm not controlling any of this. What is that? Anatta. All that every time you go back to your object of meditation. This makes you hugely different in your practice than the person who just wants to practice metta. May I be happy, may I be happy, may you be happy, may you be happy. And then what? And that's why in those retreats you always have headaches, migraines, painful, which goes on for years. In fact, I know of a very famous monk who practiced meditation for some time, very famous monk, old monk, and then gave up because he would always have tremendously bad, painful migraines. And now he's starting to meditate again, but he's trying to push through the migraine. And he's too stubborn to actually practice this technique or a similar technique to relax the mind, to relax his hold. What do you do? You don't do anything anymore with such a person. So, because we have to understand the satipatthana is with us all the time. It's up to us to practice it. So, and then let's not forget the bojjhangas, the 7 factors of awakening. A person who was in the first group, the person who is reborn in the heavenly realm because they, and then they drop, they never heard of bojjhangas. They don't know what Dhamma Vichaya is. They don't know what sati is. They don't know what piti is. Tranquility of mind, passaddhi, they don't know what it is. They don't know what samadhi is. They have definitely no clue about equilibrium or equanimity, upekkha. So the difference you see is huge, because those are the factors that will take a person straight to Nibbana, not the metta by itself. This is very important. Because so many people think, I just give metta. It's like, no, that's just the icing on that. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Just a tiny little bit. There's a lot going on. You're maintaining so much. You're cultivating the mind on such deep levels. Even in something as cozy and comfy as metta. It's not just that. So, again, bhikkhus, by fully going beyond the sphere of the boundless space, by knowing that consciousness is infinite and without boundaries. By the way, that was the fifth jhana, the first Rupajanas. So now we're going to the sixth. Now we're talking about the consciousness expanding. That is one of the qualities that the Rupajanas have. It's expansion, spreading. It's like the first one is space. It feels like the consciousness is spreading wide. And initially it's funny because when I'm interviewing people, they're like, I don't know what's going on. It's like I feel expanding, like I feel there's something's happening. I don't know. So I have to ask tons and tons of questions, and I have to look at their body language and all these things to see where they are. And because it's very difficult for the meditator to identify, because this is unprecedented. They don't know, they don't have a reference point to say this is like this. So, and it's very important for them to practice tranquility of mind because it can be agitated. People sometimes go in and get out. They get kicked out because the mind gets so agitated very quickly because it's unusual. Unusual. That's why we need to have upekkha. Upekkha. That is the thing which is going to say, it's okay. Remember that? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. He becomes, in this case too, so without one experiences the boundlessness of consciousness by attaining to that base. He becomes attached to it, craving for it to last, as he strives after it while finding satisfaction in it. So you grab hold of it, you get gratified by it. You're holding on to it. Becoming infatuated with it and making much of it. Without falling away from it, after his death, he is reborn in the company of devas within the realm of boundlessness of consciousness. So this is a higher level devas from the last one. The devas living within the realm of boundless consciousness have a lifespan of 40,000 world cycles or eons. Double. As if that was not long enough. 20,000 eons, Mahakalpas. Now we got 40,000. An ordinary person, having lived and completed that lifespan by using up the merits of his divine birth, goes to hell, or to the animal realm, or is reborn within the afflicted spirits or ghosts. Because I don't know of any reference in anywhere in the suttas where a person of these, within these realms, could actually still practice the Dhamma. Unless they had the Dhamma to begin with. So it's very difficult for them to be introduced for the first time in this level as devas, because they're in bliss. Their thing is, why do I have to practice anything? I'm in bliss. Because they see it as the summum bonum, as the perfection, that's the apex, the highest thing that is achievable by them. And that's the end, that's the period, that's the end of the story. Unless the person has been exposed to the Dhamma to begin with. So they carry the Dhamma with them into that state because they're still practicing the Satipatthana even as devas. That makes the difference. The other person, however, they've been holding on to this sixth jhana state. Bliss. Ah, yes. That's why the Lord Buddha is saying they fall. They fall even into the deepest parts of the lower realms. Because it's like anything. You keep spending all your money, where are you going to end up? Zero, which means nothing. You have nothing. You don't even have food. You're going to be on the street. It's the same principle. As far as the disciples of the Blessed One, once having completed the lifespan in that divine realm, he attains final Nibbana within that same existence. Within those 40,000 Mahakalpas, they will not die until they become Arahants. That's it. And it's a long time. We're not talking about 100 years or 1,000 years. We're not. Imagine billions of years multiplied by 40,000. Mind-boggling number. And I'm not an accountant. So, he attains final, okay. Bhikkhus, this is the difference and the distinction of the future rebirth destination between the instructed noble disciple and that of the ordinary person. Last week, well, I think it was this Sunday, Patamarahogatara Sutta, one of these days, anyhow, last few days ago, in the retreat, I went over a sutta where we talked about Venerable Anuruddha and the importance of the Satipatthana. Because people kept on asking, Bhante, how did you become an arahant? How did you become enlightened, awakened? So he would always point back to the Satipatthana. Looking at your body, looking at your feelings, looking at your mental states, looking at the different phenomena and their relationships is crucial during the day. That is why we practice sati. Your meditation is not just 10 minutes, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. That's not meditation. I don't care if you sit 2 hours in one sitting and then you forget about everything the rest of the time. What did you do for 22 hours? It really doesn't matter, ultimately. You need to be carrying some of that sati, drop and drop of it, throughout the day. You have to. That's what's going to maintain your practice. That is real satipatthana practice. You're aware of your body in time and space. How your body is positioned in time and space. How does it feel? Are you leaning on both sides of the body? Is it equally balanced? Or are you leaning to the left or to the right? Even now, as I'm saying these words, which hand is on the other hand? Without looking. Without looking. Is your head tilted to the left or to the right, or to the front or to the back? Play these games with yourself. Already you would be starting to do sati of the body. Kaya anupassana. And then the same thing. How many times a day do you go through upheavals of feelings? You cry, you laugh, you cry, you laugh, you're neutral. And all of a sudden you're in pain, and then you're in happiness. What's happening? Watch the mind. That's Vedananupassana. So play these games. And without knowing, you're actually practicing the Dhamma. This is crucial. Not just you sitting. No one is going to come and give you, I will not definitely give you a medal because you've been sitting for 20 years, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night. Sorry. It means nothing. If the rest of the time nothing is there, like your mind is lost and you're doing and breaking precepts, who cares? So all aspects of the human experience have to be taken into consideration. Nibbana is only going to come out of your life, not mine, not the world, not everybody, not anyone else. It only comes from you. It is thanks to you. It is because of you and by you removing your own defilements from your heart. What are you stuck up on? What are the things that you feel like you're stuck with? You're like, I want this and this and this to be perfect in order for me to feel okay. Well, there, guess what? That is your attachment. The moment you let go of that attachment, one at a time, suddenly you set yourself free. Already we can call that mini Nibbana. Mini. Don't expect Nibbana to be just hugely just dropping from the sky over your head and say, ah, yes, now I'm awakened. No! I know people, for example, who want to take care of the climate, this and that, recycling this and that, and they've become so uptight. I have friends in the US. I understand, I support, I do as much as I can, but I'm not going to lose sleep over that. If I see somebody not doing what I'm doing, I'm not going to go, do that, why'd you do that? What is that? What was that? Vyapada, ill will, hatred. Wait, I was trying to help the planet, what is that? Where did that come from? Where's metta? Gone. See, it could be anything. I could be teaching Dhamma and now I'm abusing my students. For example, I mentioned how in the beginning of the retreat there were people in Burma. If you go on retreat in some places, if you are not sitting in meditation, guess what? They will find you and they will beat you with a stick, drag you into the Dhamma hall. Why aren't you sitting? Why aren't you? They will hit you. Some places. Well, why am I even there? Where's the Dhamma in that? See, people get stuck. So it's there. This is the person's problem. It's not the the meditation's problem. It's not the stick's problem. It's not the recycler's problem. It's not the weather's problem. It's the person's attachment. That's the problem. So it could be anything. Your love for your child, your love for your friends, that could also be a stuck-up point, attachment. So we need to apply wisdom, first and foremost, because this is a path for wisdom, period. And the wisdom is going to come through your practice. And it's not practicing on someone else, controlling someone else. I want him to be this way, otherwise I'm not happy. Who? Him. Who are you? I'm a she, I'm a he, well, whatever. This is something that I would see in couples when I used to be a therapist, a couples therapist. She needs to change, otherwise I'm not happy. Wait, what? Do you see a problem in this picture? People don't. You have to point it out. We do ridiculous things as human beings sometimes. So remember, all these things are vanishing, arising, and vanishing, arising. All these kaya vipassana, the breathing, the feeling, and the mental states. You have to also be, in order for you to be practicing satipatthana, you also have to see the arising and vanishing. It's very important. That is how you realize the anicca portion of it. Okay, back to our main sutta. Again, because by fully going beyond the sphere of boundlessness of consciousness, by knowing that there is nothing, one enters into and dwells in the base of nothingness. Now we're talking about the seventh jhana. This is a very unique state. Sometimes people think that when they experience this, they have now become arahant. They have attained sunyata, they have attained emptiness. So this is it. I am now a Buddha, I am now an arahant. No, you're not. It's a nice space of mind, but that's it. That's about it. But he becomes attached to it, craving for it to last as he strives after it while finding satisfaction in it, becoming infatuated with it and making much of it. Without falling away from it, after his death, he is reborn in the company of devas within the realm of nothingness. The devas living within the realm of nothingness have a lifespan of... not yet. We're coming to the 80,000, not yet. So 20,000 extra over the 40, so we get 60,000 world cycles or eons. An ordinary person, having lived and completed that lifespan by using up the merits of his divine birth, goes to hell, or to the animal realm, or is reborn with the afflicted spirits or ghosts. Imagine, from that sublime state, boom, with the petas, you become a peta. It's a terrible thing, and that's one of the reasons why Lord Buddha always urged his students to at least attain a Sotapatti stage. At least. So you don't ever fall into anything lower than a human realm. As for the disciples of the Blessed One, once having completed that lifespan in that divine realm, he attains final Nibbana within that same existence. Bhikkhus, this is the difference and the distinction of the future rebirth destination between the instructed noble disciple and that of the ordinary person. Bhikkhus, these are the three persons known to exist in the world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. The key word or the activity or action, sometimes I use the word sati, but the key factor, necessary ingredient to make the person really a noble disciple is yoniso manasikara. Wise attention. Unfortunately, our attention is always, as a human being nowadays, on the wrong, paying wrong attention. There's a term for that, ayoniso manasikara. You look at your phone so many times a day, expecting something, looking for emails, texts, SMS, WhatsApp message, whatever. You have more attention towards those things. But when someone's trying to tell you something important, your mind drifts off. I remember about 20 years ago, the attention span of a normal average human being was about 24 minutes. In fact, that's why they had in America, in the United States, commercials were set up in such a way where they will come in when you're watching a sitcom or a show during those minutes, those episodes. Now it's become less and less and less. If you turn on a YouTube channel, YouTube video, anything that you want to watch, guess what? First, there's an ad. And then you just wait for that skip ad part, and yes, and sometimes you don't even get that lucky. And then every a few seconds, there's boop, something else comes up. Boop, something else comes up. You're not allowed, you're not encouraged to look at one thing unchanged. There's other things coming up, always something else throwing at you. They're throwing it out at you. That caused the child, yesterday's child, today's adult, to lose the level of the average amount of time for attention has dropped dramatically. Now it's actually, sadly, I think, from what I heard once recently, it's in the seconds. It's no longer 24 minutes. It's within the seconds range. Imagine that. The span of a human being has dropped. So the child has to really be disciplined from a young age. If you want the child to become an athlete, you really have to drag him from a very young age to be disciplined, to be good at something. Michael Phelps, for example, he was top swimmer, Olympic swimmer in the world. So many medals. I stopped counting at 15, I think. So he had 15 gold medals, I think. He began training at a very, very young age. Today, you will never get a Mozart. You will never get a Mozart in this stage. Because the mind is like this. There can never be enough tranquility for the brain of the human to really do creative work. Look around you, look at the artwork that we call art today, so-called artists. It's junk. I used to be an artist. And I used to make fun of Picasso. Junk. And all my artist friends would say, oh, how could you be an artist? How could you have studied art and stay? Because it's junk. Go and check out Michelangelo's work. Raphael. Just look at them. It's mesmerizing. It's just like you sit there and you think, is this a human being looking at me? It just so happens that they are in a marble form. It's amazing. That requires tremendous amount of concentration, presence of mind. Today, the mind is so like a monkey. And then we say, oh, that's art. No, that's you. That's the monkey in your brain. You know, it's craziness. So what we're doing is, and this is something terrible because it's also been happening with the Dhamma. Yeah, you see somebody in robes even, sitting there in front of so many people, giving talks, discourses, but the level of Dhamma is matching the level of the listeners. Meaning, they are catering to the taste buds of the listeners. We have a term for that in English, dumbing it down. You make it dumb enough for the people to understand. You don't raise them to the quality of the teaching. You lower the teaching to match up. And before I changed careers as a teacher, or as a high school teacher, one of the things that led me to make that decision after 10 years of teaching high school was because I kept on getting people to tell me, whether it was the government or the administration or whatever, to make it more understandable for the less achieving students. Meanwhile, the high GPA honor student is going to sit there and waste their very valuable time as I am going and spoon-feeding, dumbing down the teaching to make it palatable, to make it acceptable for the student who's simply lazy. Meanwhile, the other person is toiling over this, preparing for the test, and they want me to push them. So I got tired from taking from my own free time to teach the ones who were struggling, as I was still delivering top-notch quality teaching for the ones who were at the honors level. So somebody had to sacrifice themselves, and it was me. And I got tired, I got sick. And I said, I can't do this. And they were not willing to pay for a TA, teacher's assistant. Well, how many times are you going to skip lunch? How many times are you going to show up there an hour early and an hour later at school so that you can help the others? You get tired, you get exhausted. And so the whole system was working against the teachers, and they still are, around the world, especially in America. That's why the quality of education dropped dramatically during the last 40 years, 40, 50, 45 years. But this is now a global phenomenon, which is what's happening also in Dhamma circles. I keep saying, if you want to listen to a Dhamma talk, I don't care who it is, there must be the ingredient of Sangvega, urgency. The teacher must urge you to strive on, not to be lazy with your life, with what you could accomplish now. Because who knows, if you say next month I'll dedicate within this month, what if you could have a car accident? What if you have a stroke? What if you have a car accident and you don't die? That's a very bad situation, because now you are paraplegic. You can't move. At least if you died, you died. Now it's pain for you and for everyone else around you. And you can't function. You drool, somebody has to clean you up. That's terrible. And you definitely cannot practice. Sangvega is about not wasting any more time. So every single Dhamma discussion, talk, must have it in it. If it doesn't, don't pay attention. It's a waste of time. Your time is very valuable. Very valuable. I don't care what age you're in. Really, it doesn't matter. Death will come. It doesn't care if you're 60, 80, 90, 17, 16. Doesn't matter. So don't waste this life. So, yeah, that's a good way to end today's. Don't waste your life. So I'll pause here and open for any questions you might have. So cute. Any questions? Yes, Joe.
Thank you, Bhante. By the way, about the number of seconds with the attention span, I think it's about 7 seconds now.
7?
For human beings.
Wow.
And in comparison, it's about 10 seconds for a goldfish.
Sadly, I feel you're, my hunch is yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, continue.
Anyway, on to my questions. The first question is, you know, when we read the suttas, when someone becomes a sotapanna, they get this vision of Dhamma. So my question is, what is it that they see exactly? So that's my
the first question.
And then my second and last question is, I've seen before, when it comes to the term anicca, you normally say, translate it as impermanence. But I've seen other people translate it as something else. They say it's our inability to keep things the way we like. That's their translation for impermanence. For anicca. So what's your thought on that? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Inability of our inability to keep things the way they are. That's the way we like, or the way they are, usually the way we like them to be. That is, yes, they're connected, but they're not the same thing. I don't see them. They're connected, though. The impermanency of things causes the person to be unable to keep things the way they like them. See, it's like A and then B. So they're talking about B, but the foundation of it is the very fact that things are impermanent. Why? Everything that is conditioned is impermanent. And that's one of the things that, if you notice, I'm answering your second question first. I'm coming back to the first one. But Lord Buddha talks about the average human being, unevolved human being, Puja, as someone who constantly tries to find the somehow a permanency in things that are impermanent. Let's say you go and look for a mate, a job, a career, and you think, this is it, I found it, and this is going to be perfect, and all that is just nonsense. The long-term, like foreverness. But that's something, it's like very Disney-esque, I call it. Disney, like happily lived ever after type of a thing. But we grew up with that kind of nonsense. Forever and ever. What? Wait a minute, come over here. What forever? What are you talking about? Do you know of anything that lasts forever? The Earth. Okay, the oldest rock they found was in Canada, which is about 3.4 or 3.2 billion years. That's it. Nothing older than that. That you can see. But even that is transitional. You just give it some time, it's still impermanent. You build castles, you go, I love antiques, like going to old buildings, structures. I sometimes, like in India or Europe, I would go and touch the walls of these castles, of these houses, and just to touch the walls, the stonework, and just to touch and feel the history. I was like, whoa, millions of people probably touched it. Where are they now? Impermanence. So, but we are very stubborn. We still want to somehow have continuity. That is a futile effort. The refusal to see that is ignorance. But anicca itself is the nature of change, and it is ongoing. It is unchanging, its nature, in being changing. So, but the first one, what was it? Sorry. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Sotapatti. Oh, yes, Sotapanna. What is it that they see? You have to ask a Sotapanna. Maybe I can help you, given whatever I've been exposed to and things. It is not a vision, first of all. It is not a, whoa, look at that. Something is opening through the clouds and there's this vision. I'm a changed person. No, it's not like that. But it is life transforming nevertheless. The person is never the same. Never the same. And something different happens. And they will never fall back. And it's a joyful experience to witness this as a teacher or someone who's seeing this, because you see that the Dhamma is alive and they become the Dhamma. Their heart becomes palpitating with the Dhamma. If they hear something that is Adhamma, I don't care if it's coming from this Ajahn or that very famous monk, whatever, and they're saying Adhamma, this person will say, that is not what Lord Buddha taught. I'm sorry. And there might be no record of it somewhere. But the person has such a level of certainty that is unprecedented. They're even surprised. The level of faith is unprecedented. Their skin doesn't change, their body doesn't change. It's their level of understanding, because they have this quality, the ability to see. When we say jnana dassana, they have the knowledge and understanding to be able to see what? what is Dhamma from what is Adhamma. They have such tremendous faith. And suddenly they look at rituals and rites and things, they just shake their heads. It's like, this will never get you to arahantship. Now go ask them, how do you know? They're like, I know. By the way, they will not go around talking to people and saying, hey, I'm a Sotapanna. Excuse me, here's my card. None of that, which is sometimes something that I've seen people do, and it's just a joke. It is a very personal affair. They could care less if anyone knew. In fact, they will do their utmost to hide it. That's another clue that you might be dealing with a Sotapanna who keeps their mouth shut, because it's a very personal thing. They never do it for fame. They never actually look at it, because this was a result of their own journey. So it's not a vision like that. When we say vision, think of it as a seeing, not a vision as you see in other religions. You know, there's that distinction. So I hope that answers the question. So that would be also an invitation for you to go ahead and taste it for yourself. Yeah. Any other thoughts, questions? Yes?
How do you think art can transcend, art like the past art, that you were talking about, like Michelangelo, this kind of masterpieces, can touch people nowadays? If people are so different, if we can call it that way, Or what would be the way, how do you think that can happen?
The way I said it, because I have some prejudice, I guess, towards art, because I've had, I used to admire Michelangelo a lot, so that there's a prejudice there, probably, a preference from, as a person, versus being, like, not just a monk. So there's part of me, preferential treatment of the Renaissance, let's say. But coming to your question, this is something that I realized years ago as an artist. When I would go and watch or look at a painting, like Rembrandt, let's say. Once I was in Los Angeles and I had gone to the Getty, and I was walking around, there was a visiting exposition, expo, and from Europe, and everybody was going after the famous pieces. And looking in front, you would have like 5, 10, 15 people standing in front of one painting. And I couldn't help but get stuck in front of one painting by myself, and I was mesmerized. I was just like, there was some energy there. Now, the energy I'm talking about is the presence of the artist while they were painting. There has to be a synchronicity. Now, this is not part of the Dhamma. I have to say that. People are saying, well, where'd you get that? Where Sutta does it say? There's always somebody who says that. I get email, sometimes people send me emails like, oh, where'd you get that? What's the word reference? Give me the sutta number. I'm like, chill out, relax, okay? Drink a cup of water, relax. So what I'm talking about is my own personal experience. It's the same thing when you go to a garden or you eat a food that has been a person has put their presence into it. What I call sometimes the metta. I could feel the metta. Versus another dish that somebody makes and it's like costs $150 or $500 and now you taste it, it's like, ugh, take it away. There's no love here. What is this? People eat this? But then you eat something that looks so simple, but someone put their heart into it. An artwork that the mind of the artist was so still, they lost themselves while making it, and there was a purity of intention. It wasn't vulgar. So I'm standing there, and that painting was like, whoa. It was a Rembrandt painting. But and the others were Rembrandt too. It was the visiting, the whole art was from Holland, Amsterdam. But that piece, and then I find out that it was actually done at a certain time in his life when things were going so that his mind, his central nervous system was doing okay, so he was much more connected. It resonated across centuries. The same thing happens with Michelangelo. There's a statue of Moses that I had fallen in love with as a teenager, when I was first starting to draw with a pencil, with precision, when I was doing fine arts, drawing classes. And every time I go to Europe, if I go to Rome, I make a point, I found a church where it is. I researched it everywhere, and I found the place where the statue is, and I went there. It's in a church, but for me, the church was Moses' statue. A human being had touched such a deep part of themselves. That part of that beauty, that truth of that moment, this is what we also experience in deep meditation, where you no longer are your thoughts. You cut loose. There are moments where it happens without looking for it in the case of some artists. And that can stay within the painting, or in this case, the marble. And to this day, you can feel it. And it's very powerful. Across centuries. And it's no longer art. Yeah, yes. Because the person's like, they see that, oh, what is this? This is ugly, or this is, they make jokes. So that actually, what you said is very important, because the viewer also has to be, or a listener if it's music, they have to be of a certain level, because the artist has done his job. The work is there. Now it is up to the viewer, centuries later, to reignite it. It's like a recipe from centuries ago that now you have, but you've heard so many things about the recipe of this food. And now you get the ingredients and you follow the steps, you make the food. And you taste the same food that was held. People had it for centuries ago. It's kind of similar. Does it feel like I'm I'm able to answer your question?
Yeah. What I understand is like that kind of art, which is really powerful, is not for most people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the artist has to deal with it then.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I stopped painting years ago. Because I found that the biggest or the most powerful art that I could do was no longer on a canvas with paint. I found that the art that I was doing, with the meditation that I was doing, it was changing me. So I became the art, which is very weird. People would think, oh, he's what a narcissist. It was like, what do you mean? Like you're going to display yourself? No, I felt different. I saw that, wait a minute, when I'm watching my body, when I'm watching my breath, when I'm watching my feelings, something is happening to the mind. And I dropped the brush and I said, I don't need to show this to the world. What am I showing anyhow? Some skills I have learned, or some, the way I see the world. Everybody sees the world in a different way. That doesn't mean everyone is an artist. In my opinion, that's an opinion. But what I discovered was life can become art. And I was very curious, and then I saw the connection with the Dhamma. And then I saw Lord Buddha was the greatest of all artists. Why? Because he went after the deepest crevasses of his mind to discover something that was hidden. And then he showed it to the world. So you can taste the same things that he did. And I'm like, okay, I like that. I want some of that. How can I get that? So I went into the meditation in a serious way, instead of just studying and getting degrees in it. It's very tempting to get degrees and think that you're actually an expert or something. No, you're not. So your life can become, because some people have asked me, doing interviews, this and that, and what is art for you? I couldn't speak. Like, how can I describe that to someone? Life is becoming art. Because once I was doing I was mentioning in the class the other day, I did for some years Japanese archery, Kyudo, and the way you walk with mindfulness. It's like kissing the ground. And it's like you have to slide it. And it took me about 1.5 years to learn how to walk. My sensei did not allow me to get the hold of the bow. He didn't give it to me until I perfected the walk. in his mind. In my mind, I was like, I was perfect. And he's like, no, you're not. He kept pushing me. So suddenly I saw that there's a gracefulness about movement with mindfulness. And I started seeing that art changed its meaning, definition for me. It had no longer to do with the paintbrush and the canvases and things like that. So that's why I don't paint anymore. Even before becoming bhikkhu, I didn't paint. I stopped painting for many, many years. The last painting I did was in 2000, I think. It was like 20 some years ago. So I hope that answers the question. So discover that. Even when you're looking at something, that's you can resonate with it. Be still with it. When you're watching the leaves, watch the mind. The leaves are pointing to your mind. Everything is pointing to your mind. Stop looking outside. Look outside so that you can go back inside. That's another way of saying it. Yes? Oh, two questions. Yes, you're welcome. Sadhu. Yes.
Bhante, I'm
Yes.
still curious on this sutta.
Uh-huh.
Why is this a conversation between Buddha and somebody?
Yes, this is Lord Buddha, but this is one of those suttas that doesn't have, thus have I heard, evam me sutang. There are many thousands of suttas that don't have that.
And they mention 3 persons.
Just the 3, this is because it's the book of the 3s. Always remember that. So whenever it's from a certain book, let's book of the 6s, it's going to talk about 6 something.
So it doesn't mean that in Arupa Jana there is only this kind
No,
of
no,
3
no, no,
persons.
no, no, no. There's obviously Neva Sanya na Sanya. That's yeah. But this is, remember, which book is it coming from? Book of the 3s. So it will have to talk about these things. Now, in the book of the 4s, maybe I don't recall if it was there, because the book of the 4s has many, many suttas, more than this, more than the 3s. It might say, let's say, just to give you an example, it might include the 8th jhana. It might, let's say, it would logically. But in this case, the compilers of the sutta thought of using these 3 sutta, the 3 stages only. But don't think that this is the only set of Arupajanas. No, because we obviously know there's the 8th jhana. In fact, some people talk about the 9th jhana also, right? On?
The 8 and 9, because now it's 5, 6, 7, right?
Oh, I see. Okay. Neither perception nor non-perception. That is again, it's an Arupa jhana, which is a higher jhana. By the way, oh, she left. I was going to give her the number of years, the Mahakalpas in that realm. It's 84,000. It's not 60, so 80,000. No, you get extra bonus. 4,000 Mahakalpas extra. So 84,000 Mahakalpas. A very vast, long time period. So this is a state that you will not know while you're in it. You will not know. You will know when you come out of it that I was in it. So sometimes people drop in it. Usually that's how it happens, because the first time at least. So the mind has to be geared, the mind has to be directed towards, you have to be preparing it. That's why you start from the Rupajanas, lower levels, slowly, because the equanimity has to be so strong. And that's why the Arupajanas, actually, these 3 and plus the other 2, they are sometimes considered to be different aspects of the 4th jhana. Some teachers, even in some suttas probably you would find how they don't list them as 5, 6, 7, 8. They just stop. Many, many suttas you find Lord Buddha just talking about the 4 jhanas. That's it. He doesn't talk about 5, 6, 7, 8. Why? Because in that context, they are the derivations of just upekkha. And upekkha really blossoms in the 4th jhana. Now, do you need to go through all these states in order for you to become a Sotapanna? Absolutely not. You don't. Some people taught that that's how it is. Some people have been teaching like that, which is wrong. If I talk about the jhanas or that as a way to attain Nibbana, the closest statement would be, again, this is from the suttas, the first jhana. If you can attain the first jhana, you can attain Nibbana. Yeah. You don't have to go any further. Yes. And on this retreat, the 10 days retreat, even though I said to myself, I'm not going to say anything, there were several people who attained the first and beyond. The first jhana. Here, on this retreat. I won't say who. I won't tell them. They go, come on. No, I won't. Because now you're going to get stuck on it. That's the human nature. The teacher will never say, oh, that's perfect. Now, guess what? I just set the standard. Now you're stuck. You will not push yourself to go beyond. So I will keep my mouth shut until you become an arahant. Okay? That's how I do it. So there's many things that happen in these states, like the neva sanya, nisanya, because the person, it feels like you have perception or you don't have perception, but it's such a weird state that you will never, ever, ever know that you're in it while you're in it. Okay? Until you come out of it. And the same goes with the ninth state, cessation of feeling and perception. That one is the branching off, because remember, Siddhartha Gautama's time, the 8 were there. His technique was a deviation. He gave us the exit. Only a Buddha could do that. He showed that there is other possibility for the mind, and that was the cessation of feeling and perception. That distinguishes this path from anything else, including within the branches of Buddhism. Any teaching that doesn't teach this within the Dhamma, they've lost it. Because there's a lot of traditions within the Dhamma, in Mahayana and Vajrayana, that teach the other in different colors. But they teach one-pointedness. They don't teach the cessation of feeling and perception. And that too, you cannot know while you're in it. The mind has to be prepared for that. And if you remember from the Chula Gosinga Sutta, Chula Vedalla Sutta that I covered with you a few weeks ago, where Venerable Lady Thera, Dhammadina, and the lay disciple, her previous husband, Visakha, they were having an argument, discussion, right? And she said very explicitly as to what happens. The mind has to be prepared, directed, guided, and ready for entering. So you have already prepared the mind and determined that I will be going into the state of cessation of feeling and perception. And you decide how long you're going to stay there previously. You cannot decide, okay, now I'm going to come out of the cessation of feeling and perception. There's no such thing. Or I'm going into it. There's no such thing. Or I just came. No. It's all previously prepared. That's why I always encourage people to go ahead and use that kind of determination to wake up in the morning. To wake up in the morning. Like instead of using a clock, say, I'm going to wake up, let's say you want to wake up at 6 or 7, say, I want to wake up at 6:58 or 5:57 minutes and 31 seconds. Initially, rarely does it happen, you just get it right, but you get closer and closer and you refine it. So this is a technique that I encourage people to use to get them to stay in a certain jhana and to come out at that time, especially when they're in the arupa jhanas. So sometimes you don't have to be in those states, by the way, to practice this, okay? You can just say, put the clock away, your timer, because sometimes I see people, meditators, I want to sit for 2 hours, Bhante, okay, but they have a clock. Or they have a clock on the wall, so they go halfway through, they go. That's not keeping the meditation. Instead, keep your eyes shut if they're shut, and say to yourself, I will wake up in exactly 2 hours and 1 second. Your first time you try, it might get close. You might be 1 hour and 53 minutes. Sometimes you might be 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's cause for celebration. But slowly, slowly you get it close and close and close. So wherever you are, start there. That's what I'm trying to say. So these are necessary for these higher 2 jhanas. And what happens is, the last one I mentioned, that is a specialty, only happens with 2 categories of noble disciples. And not all of them. Anagamin and an arahant. Not every arahant, mind you, is going to be experiencing that. Not every anagami will. But in order for you to attain those states, you must at least have those levels. Not every one of those, though, those individuals from those stages will experience it either. But at the very least, you must have attained to those levels. Because the 5 lower fetters must be dropped completely at the very least. And that's only in the case of an anagami that happens. Or an arahant, like in the case was with Venerable Thera Dhamma Dana. She was of that level. Or Venerable Sariputta. So a wonderful sutta that I recommend is Anupada Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, 111. MN 111. And in it you will find Venerable Sariputta going through all these stages. He goes through and says, no, this is not it. There's more things to be done. He goes through each of these stages. So, I hope that answers your question as best as I can. Yes, Ravi.
Bhante, in the order, there's so much expectation and disorder. Whereas in nature, things are naturally orderly. I mean, in terms of the question which the gentleman brought up just now, do you see our lives being dictated, influenced, controlled, as in an order? And with that order, we actually have expectations and suffer. Whereas when we look into nature, like when we went on the trip to the gardens, things grow naturally, things settle in and meet each other's space naturally. And there's not much human intervention in the order, whereas in nature, we see this disorder being so beautiful. Whereas, let's say in a manicured garden, if you stop watering it, you stop pruning it, the order which we so perceive actually is detrimental when it's unkept. Can you explain a little bit more? I hope you understood my question.
Who is the designator of order and disorder? You think the vine, you think the lotus, you think the bush? No of these terms? Human beings. Because even the manicured garden that you mentioned, if you let it grow, you said it will become disorderly. Go and ask the manicured garden. If I don't trim you, if I don't do this, if I don't water you, will you become disorderly? It will gain back its hair. You won't be cutting it. In Japan, there are some bonsai trees that are over 350 years old, but they are this small. This small. People, human beings, have been trimming them to make it nice and bonsai tree. If people had not touched it, it would have been a gigantic tree, huge. So people are at the crux of the matter. So it's our interpretation. Because sooner or later, if you don't trim the manicured garden, it will just find its own harmony. But even harmony does not mean that it is, or order, it doesn't mean that, the way I understand it anyhow, that there will be things there that, like when I was in Hawaii, I would see this a lot. Not just in Hawaii, there's around the world you see this. A tree, and then you have this parasitical vine growing on it. And suddenly the tree dies because it sucks the energy of the tree. Now, we come in and say, oh, that's so unfair. It killed it. This vine is a parasite. I just said it's a parasite. And in all fact, yeah, that's what happened. The tree died. And then it grows and spreads out. So we have this romantic idea about nature as well. Even nature needs discipline. You know, when I was growing up, my parents obviously were very strong. My dad especially was a disciplinarian, and then teachers were too. We used to get beat up at school, canes and things. That's where I come from, that era. And when somebody would say something about discipline, they would say always the example of the tiny little plant. When you have a plant growing, a tree, a small budding stem, you need to put some type of an anchor next to it, metal or something, and you have to tie it up. And they usually make this face. You have to tie it up. Okay. And then what happens? Yeah, well, the tree goes straight. If you don't let it go straight, it will go crooked. I mean, that's the truth. And one of the bad things that happen in the world is people have shunned discipline or orderliness to such, so they went to the opposite extreme. I grew up in a time where it was extreme, obviously, where they would beat up, and my heart would break seeing how they were treating my classmates sometimes. And I knew it was wrong. But then, a few decades later, I see the opposite extreme where anything goes. The teacher was being walked all over, laughed at, tossed things at, and no one was supposed to get punished. No child is actually being kept behind, retained. Everybody advances. That's wrong. If you don't perform, sorry, you have to stay one more year here. I'm sorry, you're stuck. There's no such things. So now what happened earlier, I was talking about dumbing down. So the discipline is gone. There's no sila in the world. That's the problem. The world doesn't have sila anymore. That's why we have all these things that are happening. It's not climate change, it's people not having sila, basically. Because it's not just climate change. People not having empathy towards another. People don't know how to feel for one another. You have to teach them that. Why is that? Why can't we still have empathy ingrown in us? Children, young children don't understand the beauty of sharing something. They keep hoarding it, they keep taking it. This is not natural. Plants know how to share. So it is our ignorance. Again, we are the designators of order and disorder, but we are responsible if there is no sila. And I'm not pointing the finger at anyone, any government, any entity, anything out there. I'm pointing the finger back at me, always. Because I can only be responsible for myself and my sila and my samadhi, and hopefully I get some panya along the way. And if that's the case, everywhere you look, it's wonderful. Because your eyes are seeing order, even if it's disorder. So I'm not bothered by that. Because I see it's anicca. I see the pattern. And who are we? Look at Lord Buddha. He was seeing corruption. He was seeing all kinds of nasty things. It doesn't affect the eye. It's nothing to do with the eye. It's the mind. Remember the two oxen? With Chitta's example, one white ox and one black ox, what is the thing that is binding them? The yoke. And what is the yoke? Craving. I want to see the world in this way. How come it's not? Well, now I'm agitating my mind. Who is? I am. The world is going on, and it will do this. It will go through these phases. And that's what Lord Buddha called anicca. Now, that doesn't mean sit there over the corner and just watch the show and just ignore and just be indifferent. No. A few weeks ago, you asked me the difference between equanimity and indifference. Well, you need to have sati. If you have sati, there's already the clue. An indifferent person doesn't have sati. Impossible. They have selfishness. They have ignorance. They block reality. They're narcissistic, and today's humanity is very narcissistic. It's no longer like 1 or 2%, certain population that has that personality disorder. No, wholesale. So I hope that answers that question. All right, so my throat, Wichi, okay, I was about to, okay. Yes, Wichi.
The Ulambanya festival, coming to the close, I just want to find out, there was the story of Mahamoggallana in the Ulambanya festival. Was there a trace in the sutra that it exists, or it could be just made up after?
Made up.
Okay. That really disappoints us, right?
Most of these things are made up because they're cute. It brings people together. Olambana, like, the baby Buddha statue. Where did you get the baby Buddha from? It's like people add these things because it's cute. You have that whole myth about Lord Buddha. The moment he's born, he's taking 7 steps. What? Out of the womb, 7 steps. I've had nephews and nieces. I've raised them, and my younger brother, I watched him for some time, helped him to get up, to walk, boom, falls, and then he's stepping on lotuses. These are cute stories, romantic ideologies, and that people can huddle around and say, my founder, the religion's founder, this and that, and my Lord Buddha is special. So you make it, we call it a reification or deification. You turn it into a deity or into a god. So I don't know, but the way I have never come across it, the closest thing that I can say is the Uposatha ceremony, which is the fortnightly, which is something that's not even Buddhist. The full moon night and the new moon night. That was something that was practiced in other traditions. And the lay people, many of them were coming from Jainism and other traditions where they had these practices. And they were coming in, and the Buddhists didn't have that. Because Lord Buddha never cared about these rituals. He cared only about Nibbana. Get the person out of suffering. That's it. Don't play around. These are toys. These are playthings. So he said, okay, you want Uposatha? Let's do Uposatha. Okay, every full moon night, every new moon night, you guys are also gathering. Same thing with the Vassa. So those you have records of course, both in the suttas and the Vinaya. But I never come across the Ulambana because these are later additions to my understanding, because I've never come across it. So, was there a follow-up question? Oh, I'm sorry, I crushed the where you were going. Yes.
Bhante, I'm trying to reflect on what you mentioned about Samvega and also about the expectation. To put into context, as a parent, you would like your child or your children, please, urgency to practice. So you try your very best, to direct them to certain, what you think or what you hope, this direction will be good for them. So in that sense, many a times we face frustration because that's not what they want, or maybe it's not what they want to do at this moment. So how do we handle this kind of situation?
The Dhamma is no different than your life. It has to be weaved into your life. That means your child wants to watch TV or be on the phone or sleep late or do this or that. The Dhamma should not be presented as something extra. It's like when we were growing up as Christians, so you had to go to church every Sunday. If you didn't, that was an extra factor added into my normal life. There was no communication between, there was no bridges between where I saw the value of going to church. I just had to, because if I didn't, I would be punished, basically. How much fun is that for a child? Because now there is this division. Now I am actually resentful that you're forcing me to go. And I'm going to make you pay for it one day. When I become an adult, I will never step foot in there. Because now I'm going to be my own boss. You don't want that. I see sometimes though, your desire to have your children be on the right footing and the right direction, I understand that, but the desire has to be balanced with wisdom. So you need to take that and see that the first influence is you. If the Dhamma is really helping you with the Samvega, it should already demonstrate itself in the way you move, in the way you talk to them, in the way they see how their mother is actually, something's different about mom. The same thing we do with, as a therapist, as a teacher, in high school. So whatever you want is the same thing with a parent. Whatever you want from the other person, show it to them. You don't have to talk about it. Show it. Don't say it. You know that saying? Show it, don't say it. That's, in other words, I'm saying role modeling. Be the person that you want them to become. I've seen people who say, don't lie. Don't you dare lie to the child. And the child, they can figure you out if they don't know you. This is when I would teach them the first class. I knew this for a fact. Within, at the most, 5 minutes, they can figure you out. If you walk into, let's say, a teacher who walks into the class for the first time. They were 5 minutes, and I'm being very generous. So that's how perceptive and observant they are. So if they are living with you, and you're saying, practice the Dhamma, practice Sila, practice this, but you're not practicing, don't be surprised if they come back to you and say, look at you. Why would I practice? Meanwhile, you're saying you have to go to Sunday school and this and that, don't practice Sila. What are you talking about? What practice Sila? To end up like you? You have countless parents who do this. So whatever you want in the other person, model it. We get this from Lord Buddha again and again. In the Dhammapada, so many places we have. Before you teach someone else, make sure that whatever you're teaching, you have imbibed it, you have actually lived it. You're living it, present continuous. So, otherwise we're hypocrites. And most of us are. Sorry. Unless you say, you call yourself out and you say, yeah, I'm a hypocrite. I have to change that. I have to change that. Secured. Let us then close. Oh, Anna has a question. Please. Yes.
Thank you. Bhante, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to make a comment. You were talking earlier about art and sharing your experience about standing in front of the Michelangelo and the feeling that you had. And I just want to say thank you, because coming to these sutta talks has been a bit like that. So thank you very much.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We have to start, each of us, from wherever we are. Please don't think that you have to be experts. You have to, sometimes it's just one sutta, or one verse, or one story. That's why I love stories. For me, the biggest one was Bahya Sutta. It shook me. It still shakes me, just thinking about it. That a human being can attain to perfection in such a way. And the other one was Angulimala. The other one was Angulimala, who, despite the fact that he killed almost 1,000 people, he ended up reaching the perfection. If Angulimala can do that, Angulimala, he was about to kill his own mother. He stabbed, killed all these people. But the moment he saw the Buddha, he fell onto his knees. He dropped his weapons. He couldn't continue. He couldn't hurt a fly. Even though later on, those people whose relatives he had killed, they were cornering him, they were beating him, they were wanting to kill him, they were cutting him. He would come back from every pindapada bleeding, bloody head, cracked head. One time he came with this bowl cut, broken, with the food spilling out. He would drag himself to the monastery, and Lord Buddha would say, "Bear it, Brahmin, bear it. Take it. Because if you don't become an arahant before you die, you're going to have to suffer for a long time." So these stories, suttas, that's one of the reasons why I have been trying so hard to put the suttas out there into the world, instead of being mesmerized by the charm and charisma of some talker or some speaker, or some reputation of a speaker, or how many followers they have. Who cares about those things? There's plenty of Dhamma in the suttas, if you go in there. But unfortunately, many of these suttas are written in a language that is so antiquated that it's not even English. I'm talking about the English ones. They're so difficult to understand because they're written by scholarly types who are so disengaged. They themselves don't understand the sutta. They promote it. The human element is left out. That's one of the reasons why I encourage you to read and to listen to the suttas anytime you get a chance. Because you might just hear one sutta, and it'll be like shaking to your roots. You're never the same person. That can be so powerful that you can even become a sotapanna. Yes, so many countless people became sotapannas, sakadagamis, anagamis, even arahants. Do you know that? So you don't have to fight, you don't have to struggle, you don't have to go after one retreat after the other. Wake up, oh, I have to push, I have to push, I have to push in order for me to... It's not like that. It's a relinquishment more than a push. It's a giving up more than a push. We never push or pull. We just practice. Okay? Good comments. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us transfer the merits. Akasatha chabumata devanagamahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu lokasasanam. Akasatha chabumata devanagamahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanam. Akasatha chabumata devanagamahiddika Punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu mam paranti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you be well. May the Triple Gem bless you. Yes, I will be leaving physically, but that doesn't mean that I won't be with you. And I will also conduct every fortnightly, every 2 weeks, the meditation, and where I will continue the sutta classes with you after meditation. So the link is there. The connection is not broken. Okay? So, yes, be well.